If you made it to part 5, I have to commend you for still being in this workshop. Part 4 was not easy to go through, but I think it was necessary to understand why consultation eludes us. In this section, we will be going through some understanding on how we can move consultation forward in this hurting world. Just a bit of review from part 4. Our mental illnesses limit our ability to consult. When we are not consulting as much as we should be, we could be making more mental illnesses for others. Power and democracy can cause people to withdraw from the community. Having this feedback relationship, we should accept our collective psychological state is not great. Individuals, families, communities, and societies all need repairs. The next 3 slides are 3 quotes that have helped me through life. I hope you see the relevance toward better consultation. The famous poem Desiderata has about 20 very useful pieces of life advice. Here's one that should lead to better consultation. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. This phrase is telling us how to present ourselves to the world. Don't withhold what we have to offer, but do this with gentleness. Listen to others. This phrase is all over this consultation workshop. Even to the dull and ignorant, they too have their story. In this workshop, I've recommended finding sensible, credible people to help us build a bigger picture. But even those people whose counsel is not worth much still have something important to tell us. Learn to be humble to learn. The New Testament gives us this quote, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." There have been controversial interpretations of this quote. A lot depends on how we define meek. The interpretation I rely on defines meek by its opposite, which is arrogance. And I talked about arrogance in part 4. So meek means pulling ourselves away from our addiction to arrogance. With arrogance, we assume we are the smartest. We know everything. Opposite of that is to admit we don't know much. So we willingly seek out new information, guidance, and advice. In other words, meekness is about being more consultative in our approach to life. With meekness, we can indeed inherit the earth. We are more able to utilize the insights of others. We gain more and higher quality personal connections. We see more opportunities, which can lead to a level of wealth that keeps a clear mind. We also find more tools for dealing with adversity, for even the meek have life challenges. The meek are more likely to find all 4 of these attributes, which are the good things from this earth. The world just works better for those with meekness when compared to those with arrogance. When the meek do find these good things, they are more able to serve the world and make it a better place. Meekness does not mean keeping our thoughts and ideas to ourselves or letting the world push us over. Rather, it is a source of strength, helping us understand what we can accomplish in a particular situation. By speaking our truth quietly and clearly, we are showing our group the strength of our meekness. We have offered ourselves to the group will respond in its own way. From that response, we can determine the degree of consultation the group has and what direction we should take. Keeping quiet to keep the peace won't gather this knowledge. One analogy of meekness is a team of workhorses. The horses know they are strong and capable. If they are called to work, they will work hard and do a great job. If they are not called, they are comfortable hanging around the barn or the pasture. They do not value themselves any less because they are not working. Seek first to understand, then be understood. I first heard this quote when I was about 10 years old. It didn't make much sense to me then. It took about 20 years before I was starting to see the light. This quote implies a reciprocal relationship, but it requires one party in that relationship to make the first big step. Seek first to understand. Seek first to understand. Seek first to understand. This is so hard to do. So hard. Often I find myself in a situation where the right solution pops into my head. I am so certain of my solution that I am very quick to thrust it into the world. I tend not to listen to others when they present their perspectives that are different than mine. When I can bring this quote up to the front of my mind, it gets me in a better frame of interaction of the people around me. But more often, I am so caught up in my solution that I don't realize how annoying I am to other people. I might come to this realization later in my revisualization, but that might be too late. Or I might not even come to this realization. Despite coming a long way to a more consultative approach to life, I still struggle with consultation. Seek first to understand is not natural for me. In part 4, I told you of my addiction to arrogance. I haven't conquered this addiction yet. I still need to seek first to understand an integral part of my nature. I may never get to where I need to be, but I am better than I was before. The addictions many of us are carrying limit our ability to consult. We are frustrated that we are not being heard. In our culture that looks to complain and blame, it is so easy to say, I am surrounded by idiots. We need to change that thinking. The people who are struggling with their mental illnesses, myself included, are not bad people. Instead of idiots, we need to see them as walking wounded. They have been damaged. The damage is affecting their rationality and interactions. Many of them can get better if they are led in a rightful way. So it's better to think, the world is hurting and needs healing, which then leads to, I want to help in this healing. I believe improving our consultation skills and attitude is a way for non-professionals to help our hurting world. And when our world hurts a little less, it is more able to consult. So psychological healing and consultation can enhance each other in a positive feedback cycle. When we see so much power and democracy in our group decision making, it seems pointless to work on improving consultation. Maybe we should just accept that humanity cannot reach this potential. So we need to remind ourselves of the times when we were in a consultative situation, when we had open minds, when several alternatives were presented, when pros and cons were evaluated, when an amicable decision was made and carried out. Most of us have had this experience. We just need to recognize how different it was from power and democracy. So please, revisualize those times in your life when consultation has happened. Even if your examples are few, they still show us that humanity does have this potential. We are not forever doomed to remain in power and democratic models. If we can move a power organization a little closer to consultative, that is a small victory. If we can move a democratic organization a little closer to consultation, that is a victory. And as people experience more consultation in their lives, they will shed some of their addictions and errant thinking. Then they will bring some of that new thinking to their groups. Our efforts to be more consultative will have a ripple effect across the world. When we join a new decision-making group, we probably don't know where it lies in the power democratic consultative paradigm. Is the group mostly consultative, or is there a power figure directing things? It might take a few meetings to figure this out. So we should exercise a little patience. As I mentioned earlier, I have a tendency to have strong opinions. When I see something wrong, I want to fix it right away. But over the years, I have learned to stay more on the quiet side. I have learned that systems have already been put in place. These systems seem to be working well, and changing the system, even with a good idea, may cause more harm than good. I have learned that organizations have sometimes previously addressed my concerns, ideas, or insights before I got into the group. They had good reasons for not going the direction I think they should go. I have learned that good ideas are not the bigger picture. Being new to the group, I have not been around enough to see that bigger picture. This might sound that it's best I don't say much in these first meetings. But then, there isn't much point for me to be there, is there, if I don't say anything? So this is why that quote from Desiderata is so useful. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. This approach lets your colleagues know something about you, yet you don't force your way on them. Their response will help you determine where the group sits on the paradigm. If the group is mostly on power democracy, you will need to accept that and do what you can to move the group toward more consultation. You gain this acceptance by patience and tactfulness. I have learned that sometimes new ideas take time to percolate. Plant a seed or two, then wait for a few meetings. And again, seek first to understand. And maybe rather than planting your seeds, ask the group about their rationale for doing things. If the rationale is sound, they might already be in a fairly consultative mode, and you can work with that. Using experts. I read a management book that said if a decision-making body has hired an expert and is not taking the expert's advice, it should fire the expert. Well, I'm not in agreement with that axiom. Here is my reasoning. Experts are not always in agreement. In these days of alternative facts, it's not difficult to find experts who disagree with each other. And when we have such a disagreement, we know both experts cannot be right. So we should be cautious when we think we have found the right expert. We just might be subconsciously finding the expert that tells us what we want to hear. But experts are right more often than the non-experts. So there is value in what they are saying. We just need to give that value the right perspective. Rather than taking the direct advice of the experts, we should look at experts showing us different paths than we could have seen by ourselves. A recommendation from an expert might lead us to a solution that neither we nor the expert had anticipated. In this case, the expert has provided value for us, even if we didn't take the direct advice. What an expert provides to a decision-making body is a credible, sensible, new way to look at the issue. In other words, the better solution comes from the combining of our knowledge, experience, and wisdom with the knowledge, experience, and wisdom of the expert. In this way, experts do not give us the answer, rather they enhance the consultation process. If you are an expert called into a decision-making body, you should not expect them to adopt your recommendations. Understand that you don't have the bigger picture and you are not living the consequences. Rather, you are helping your clients see their bigger picture. You should expect a different decision than what you had anticipated. Consultation is about building consensus. This slide has a few tips that may be useful to help you find your consensus. Consultation is combining the knowledge, experience, and wisdom of everyone in the decision-making group. So no one individual has all the answers. We are looking for solutions that are beyond any individual. Most things are not life and death or sky is falling. We tend to over-dramatize many outcomes, becoming emotionally attached to our perspective. Organizations succeed or fail with many small decisions. With consultation, more decisions will work out than not. And when organizations learn how to make small decisions with consultation, they will also make big decisions with consultation. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. If you withhold your knowledge, experience, and wisdom, your group won't get these benefits. Acknowledge the contrary opinions. There is knowledge, experience, and wisdom you don't have. When possible, allow time for reflection. I recommend postponing decisions for at least one meeting. Some people, like myself, often need some percolation time to fully absorb the new facts, perspectives, and opinions. When the consensus is not going in the direction you think it should go, consider yielding your position to that consensus. Ask yourself, did my perspectives get a reasonable hearing? Is my predicted outcome of the consensus so bad that I can justify digging into my position? Sometimes we just have to try new things out and see how they work. No one is 100% perfect at making predictions. And take comfort that if the consensual decision does not work, we will fix it within a reasonable time, if we are a consultative organization. Crisis consultation. I attended a practice demonstration of my local fire department dismantling a car to get a passenger out of an auto accident. The fire department used a crew of 4 firefighters for this task. I found the position of site commander quite interesting. The commander was in full firefighting gear, but his job was to stand back, survey the scene, and give orders. The other 3 firefighters did all the physical and tool work, taking orders from their commander. This emergency situation cannot employ a full consultative process. Lives could be drastically and unnecessarily changed by the time the firefighting crew finds its truly consultative decision. In a crisis decision, a quick, reasonable decision is better than an advanced, delayed decision. We get that reasonable decision by putting an experienced leader to guide the activity. In this case, getting the passenger out of the damaged car. While going through the various extraction steps, the crew are allowed to make brief suggestions, but if the commander does not accept the suggestions, the crew must do things that the commander's way. In other words, consult briefly, but yield to the authority. If the crew is in a consultative mode of thinking, their consultation will come after the situation has been resolved with a debriefing. The crew should discuss what went right and what could have done better. The next time, the crew and its commander will be better prepared, and maybe one of the crew will be the next commander. In part 4, I introduced how people of different personalities might find it difficult to consult with each other. But if we have consultative thinking, we will recognize that the different personalities actually contribute to better consultation. Green people like analyzing. They base their predictions on facts and logic. Why not use those natural traits to enhance our understanding? Blue people like harmony and unity. Their presence can help people see each other's point of view. Orange people like charging ahead. If they are part of the consultative decision, they will move it forward. And gold people will take their order-driven outlook to make our decisions workable. So much natural talent here, we need to learn how to use the different personalities. Reducing our risk. Solutions are seldom 100% certain, and some decisions have unintended consequences. Even with the best of consultation, outcomes may be different than expected or anticipated. To deal with other possible outcomes, I like to use this risk analysis matrix. We need to ask ourselves, if we decide on this proposal, what can go wrong? And then we ask, what is a probability that this wrong outcome will happen, high or low? And then we ask, what is the consequence of that outcome, high or low? With these three questions, we can build a matrix to give us some direction to handle the uncertainty that comes with nearly all decisions. If in our discussion we find that the probability is low and the consequence is low, we probably should not dwell on that outcome. We need to move on to other outcomes that are more likely to affect our future. If we find our decision leading to a be proactive box, we need to ask ourselves, how can we reasonably reduce the risk of an undesirable outcome beforehand? And then we can ask, how can we reasonably reduce the consequence of an undesirable outcome beforehand? By answering these questions, we just might find an interesting new angle to our final solution. Or we might not find reasonable ways to reduce our risk. But spending a few minutes to discuss these unwanted outcomes to see if we can address them beforehand can be a great investment of our time. Let me give you an example. I was on the board of a nonprofit group that was going through a big construction project. I don't have much experience in construction, but when the construction committee was giving its report, I saw a little flaw in their approach. I tried to point it out, but my perspective was easily deflected. Maybe they were justified with my non-construction experience. Maybe they thought I was overthinking things again. A year later, the flaw became apparent to all. It cost us $100,000 to repair it. Just imagine if someone on the board had said, "Dave, I can't follow what you are thinking. Can you explain yourself a little better?" I have not been all that successful in bringing risk analysis to my decision-making groups. Some people prefer to assume that the solution they have found has a 100% chance of being successful. If the decision later fails, they will deal with that outcome then. But it is often possible to incorporate the possibility of failures beforehand. There is another reason for my failure to convince my groups to use simple risk analysis techniques. I believe power and democratic organizations cannot handle multiple outcomes. They just implement the one solution to get the one outcome and hope for the best. Even organizations in the middle of the paradigm struggle in this regard. Multiple outcomes is difficult for many people and organizations. But the world is more complex than it seems, and even the best of solutions sometimes fail. It makes sense to invest the time beforehand to discuss multiple outcomes. In other words, consultation is a tool to help us plan for various contingencies. When things don't go right with our consultative decision, a feasible plan is still in place. As I mentioned in my intro, I had a physical real-world consultation workshop. In one of my workshops, I had about 6 young people as my students, and they arranged for some space in a restaurant for a couple of hours. At first, we had the restaurant mostly to ourselves. It was an okay place to deliver the workshop. More diners came into the restaurant, and the noise was becoming distracting. So I said, Let's move over there. Over there was a little quieter. Well, we did move over there. But I could see a couple of my students as not happy. Only in my re-visualization did I realize my mistake. I was supposedly the teacher of consultation, and I just made a power decision. I should have said, "This room is getting distracting for me. What should we do?" This story gets into the summary of part 5. Consultation is not easy. It is so amazing how we so easily assume that we are good at a consultation. Many of us have wounds that limit our consultation abilities. Our life mission is to move past these wounds. Striving for a more consultative attitude will help our journey and the journey of other people. To learn, we need to revisualize our meetings and interactions. We really need more practice with seek first to understand. I sure need that practice. Part 6 will give us this practice.